Deuteronomy 12 says, do not pursue after gods, saying, how did they nations serve their gods? I will do likewise. You shall not likewise to the Lord your God. For every abomination that the Lord hates, they have done to their gods. They have even burned their sons and daughters in the fire of their gods. Whatever I command you, be sure to do it. You shall not add to it or take away from it. This is a celebration of the God of the dead. The earliest Halloween celebrations, which some say started in the British Islands, were held by the Druids in honor of Samhain, the Lord of the Dead, whose festival fell on November 1st. It was a Druid belief that on the eve of this festival, the Lord of the Dead called all together his wicked spirits. In the ancient pagan world, it was believed that the souls of the good people would rise to heaven and the souls of evil people would be turned over to the Lord of the Dead. And once a year, the spirits of the dead people would be led out. Kind of sounds like Islam, doesn't it? Well, in the ancient pagan world, it was believed that the souls of good people would rise to heaven. Hallows is an old word for the saint of All Hallows Eve, 31st of October. It's a vigil of all saints. In Sicily, this is how far it goes back, the ghostly visitors bring gifts for the children, toys and sweets and clothes stolen from the shops. The Welsh believed the ghost name came and sat on every stile when the clock struck 12. And in some parts of Wales, these ghosts appeared as a white lady. While in the north, in Wales and Scotland, people feared the black sow. Not God. In Wales until the 18th century, it was customary to burn a candle in the church to see what the future held. Talk about your sorcery. A bright flame meant prosperous and a happy year. An irregular flame foretold trouble. And if it went out, this signified a person's own death. Halloween is purely a pagan occult holiday. The symbol of Halloween tells the true meaning of the day. The jack-o'-lantern is an idol to the Lord of the Dead, Satan. The lighted candle in its remnant of Halloween's fires to light the way of the returning spirits of the dead. The witch represents the high priestess of Satan's worship. The full moon is the Sabbath night on which witches perform their ritual worship of the saints and of Satan and Satan's spirits. The black cat is associated with witchcraft, and it symbolizes a witch's spirit guide, which of course would be a demon. The truth is that when people observe and commemorate pagan holidays, they actually worship Satan, who wants to be worshipped as God. You can't do this. Taken all together, the consequences of the Christian with the heathen festivals are too close and too numerous to be accidental. These things mark the compromise of the church. The Bible shows that God has commanded his people to do or not do certain things. He commands his children not to learn the ways of the heathen. It allows no way to sanctify a festive pagan festival in Christianity. Corinthians 10 says this, "But I say that the things which the Gentiles sacrifice, they sacrifice to demons and not to God. And I would not that you should have fellowship with demons. You cannot drink the cup of the Lord and the cup of the demons. You cannot be partakers of the Lord's table and of the table of demons." You can't do both. 1 Corinthians chapter 10, verse 20 and 21 clearly says this. 1 Corinthians chapter 10, verse 20 and 21. You cannot be partakers of the Lord's table and of the table of demons. As incredible as it may seem, the Catholic Church, which professes to worship Christ, began these pagan practices in their worship of God. On this day, the church honors the angels and the saints in heaven in Catholicism. It's a holiday of obligation. They say it's a great family feast. Has its origins in the year 610 when Pope Boniface the Sixth dedicated the pagan pantheon of Rome to the Blessed Virgin of all the martyrs. And here we go. Here we go into Catholicism. They say it's a special commemoration of the millions of saints in heaven who have not been officially canonized by the church and thus have no special commemoration during the year. They say this day commemorates all of the souls in purgatory. It's a day for pious remembrance of the dead and for offering masses and prayers for them. Catholicism is offering masses and prayers for the dead. The Bible clearly says we are not to pray for the dead, for their fate is set in stone. Once you pass from this body into your spiritual body, you're done. The decision is made. There is no second chance. We are told not to pray for them. Yet Catholicism has set up a day for the offering masses and prayers for them. On this day, as on Christmas, priests are allowed to say 3 masses for the souls of the departed, that they may be free from purgatory. The Bible tells us that's a huge no-no. You don't do that. From moon on All Saints' Day till midnight of the next day, All Souls' Day, all those who have confessed and received Holy Communion on either of the 2 days may gain the toties quoties indulgence. They say that this is a plenary indulgence acceptable to the souls in purgatory every time they visit a church or public chapel. They pray 6 Our Fathers, 6 Hail Marys, 6 Glorias for the intention of the Holy Father, the Pope. We are told in the Bible that we are to call no one Pope or no one Father because we have only one Father, and that's the Lord God. I'm sorry, Catholics. I'm sorry, but the truth has to come out. And along with being part of the Catholic system of worship, Halloween is also the high Sabbat for witches around the world. It's the practice of witchcraft are condemned in the Bible in Deuteronomy 18. True Christians should have absolutely nothing to do with any such evil and abominable satanic practices, customs, and days. The children of Christians should not be involved nor practice in any of these holidays events that have anything to do with Halloween. Nothing. Now you run into the same problem in our Western society as you do with Easter. Halloween, it's so much fun for the kids to dress up. They get to go around to people's houses and beg for candy. Knock on the door and say trick or treat to get candy. And, this is a cleverly devised system to draw our children away from God and to draw us away from God. It is very hard for a parent to have their kids see other kids having all this fun, dressing up, going around getting bags of candy. I used to think that candy was the first word that kids learned before mommy or daddy. The first word to come out of their mouth would be candy, candy, candy. I want candy. Because they just have an obsession for it. When you see things like Easter and Halloween, when they get free candy, the kids' eyes light up. They're going, they're doing a little happy dance. The little happy dance, we're going to get us some free candy, free candy, free candy. And then mom and dad say, no, you're not going out to get any free candy because it's a pagan holiday. We don't care anything about that. We care about free candy. And it's a hard thing to do, to tell your kids they can't participate in that. All of my friends are dressing up. They're asking me what I'm going to dress up as, and blah, and it goes on, and the secular world and the people who are not Christian or are Christian and still participating in these things really put the pressure on. And the pressure is right directly on your kids, and you're not with them 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. They go to school. They have friends. They go to their friend's house, their friend's parents. Hey, little Billy, what are you going to be for Halloween? I'm going to be home with no candy. And they get sad, and they'll get tears coming down their eyes, and they'll think you're just the worst parent ever. When, in fact, they just don't understand that you're saving their souls. You're teaching them God's truth. It's a hard thing to do, and it's a hard decision to make. And Christmas is the same way. Oh, Christmas is probably the worst. Who loves Christmas more than kids? Everyone says Christmas is for kids, the exchanging of gifts and the Yule log and everything that goes with that. And Christmas is a time of Christ, and when we commemorate his birth and blah, 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 blah. Well, most professing Christians believe that Christmas is one of the most important holidays. And a lot of people blindly follow its observance. They assume that Jesus was actually born on the 25th. Because we look to Christ as our Savior, it's important to take a deep look into his birth. We all the time hear people say, let's put Christ back in Christmas. Well, most Bible scholars agree. Christmas is of pagan origin. In his book, 4,000 Years of Christmas, Earl Count, professor of anthropology at Hamilton College, explains the origin of the Christmas celebration. And here's what he says. We do not know its beginning. We do not really know when the Christ child it venerates was born, or the time and place when Christmas was first celebrated, or exactly how it was that over the centuries a bishop saint of Asia Minor, a pagan god of the Germans, merged to become Santa Claus. He says, although the Christian story centers in the Christ child's birth in Bethlehem, it begins so long before his coming that we find its hero arriving on the scene after more than half of the time of the story has gone by. Christmas began over 4,000 years ago as the festival which renewed the world for another year, the 12 days of Christmas. The bright fires and probably the Yule log, the giving of presents, the carnivals with their floats, their merrymaking, the clowning, the murmurs who sang and played from house to house, that would be the carolers, the feasting, the church processions with their lights and songs, and all these and more began 3 centuries before Christ was born. They celebrated the arrival of the new year and had nothing to do with Christ. This happened on December 25th. It fell in the midst of the Saturnalia. Far from being an invention to compete against Rome and Persian paganism, the birth of Christ ran the danger of being swallowed up in a pagan merrymaking. The church fathers tried strenuously to keep Christmas strictly as a churchy celebration. It was part of their unremitting struggle to break the grip of the pagan gods upon the people. And as they broke, Romans became Christians. But the Saturnalia remained. Well, we don't really know when Jesus was born. Now, if we were supposed to celebrate his birth, don't you think he would have said something about it, or at least told us when it was? There's no more than the historical date of his birth than any other. Christmas, as we've seen, is of the Mediterranean world already, had not been merely centuries, but millennia behind it. When Christ was born, and even the religion that he founded had traveled